Welcome everyone, and we'll bring the meeting to order. I just remind everybody this meeting is live streamed, so everything is live, and it will be put into the town's archives, and you'll be able to access that later on as well. Prior to the open session, council met for a closed meeting, and it was moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor Borneman that pursuant to Section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moves to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to B. Personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, EMS Advisory Committee appointments, C. A proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, property appraisal, D. Labor relations or employee negotiations, CAO, employment agreement, work plan, and E. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, assessment appeal on a property matter, and that was passed and the meeting held. Are there any additions or prioritization of the agenda? No. Okay. Mover and seconder for the agenda, please. Councillor McCann, Councillor Burden, that the council agenda for March 5th, 2019 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Item 921, the revision to the land ambulance budget, as my spouse is the CFO of the West Parry Sound Health Center. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further declarations? Seeing none, may I have a mover and seconder for the minutes, please? Councillor Backman, Councillor Borneman. The minutes from the regular council meeting held February 19th, 2019 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Brown. I had an occasion to be at the McFarland transfer station to bring in some recycling, and the fiber bins were all full. So I'm wondering, does that happen often? And the staff, and they're very good at the station, explain that the truck can only come on a Monday or whatever. And I just wondered if do we need more bins out there, or was this an exception to the rule that particular time?
Mr. Brown.
Through your worship, it's basically an exception to the rule. Typically, those bins are taken away at the proper time, but depends typically on the weather. And we haven't had that great of weather this year in the wintertime. So I think that's the main reason why. We will be installing a compactor bin for fibers, so that will allow us to collect more fibers and basically compact them in a better form, so they're not overflowing like the existing bin that's there now.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Councillor Keith, and then Councillor Borneman. You had one after that? Okay. Yep.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Brown. I've had a few complaints regarding the fire hydrants and the lack of clearance of snow around the fire hydrants, and people being concerned if their place caught fire, that they would be in bad shape. And I noticed in taking a little boo, and I don't suggest that I did the whole at Parry Sound, but just in taking a boo of some of the streets, for example, Addy Street, I saw a fire hydrant there. If it didn't have the flag up, I wouldn't have known it was there. So that one was really covered. And certainly the one down in Cascade William Street, there was one there pretty well covered. There was a little bit showing. The bottom line is, I'm wondering if there's a plan on how the hydrants can be cleared on a regular basis, and possibly how much community engagement, or is there even a plan there as to how much community engagement we could have happened, because I know that some people have told me that in the past they would clear around the hydrant, but if they had health issues and that, they've had to give it up. Could you please advise?
Mr. Brown?
Sorry, thank you. Through your worship, the water treatment plant staff are responsible for clearing the hydrants for the most part. We typically wait till the snow stops before we get out there. We have been out a couple times already this year. We bought a specialized piece of equipment so they can get done quicker and more efficiently. But when there's when there's only so many staff, so many days, and there's training involved, we don't get out there possibly as quickly as some people would like. The other issue we have is that, we're experiencing residents who bury the hydrants, and, out of no fault of ours. So we're not the ones that are doing it, they are. So we encourage the public to ensure that they don't blow snow on the hydrants, that if they do, to clear them off right away, because it's only to their advantage if there is heaven forbid, if there is a fire or if there's a need for a hydrant in that area and somebody's buried it, then they should be responsible for clearing it. We've made that perfectly clear on our website as well as our Twitter page. We do endeavor to get out as often as we can to ensure that the hydrants are clear. We have a group, the staff go around on a regular basis when they're doing their sampling to ensure that the hydrants are clear. We may not get to them as soon as the snow falls, but we get to them as quickly as we can.
Yes.
So the follow-up, and just for clarification, and we don't have some sort of a system where we, I have two parts to the question. One is we don't have some sort of a follow-up sort of a system where we can get the commitment of some of the local citizens that have a hydrant near them that will take on that responsibility. I'm not hearing that. And number two, for those that it's suspected are blowing the snow on the hydrant, is there a fire hydrant? Is there a referral to Mr. Thompson, Chief Thompson's department, bylaw as to whether sending a letter or a little talk to somebody to kind of get them to stop this? Is there anything there? Thank you.
Through your worship, we have to catch the individual in the act. We have to basically drive by to see that person doing it, because then we have the proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. So we make every effort to do that. We do have a system where we will go out and clear off the hydrants that are buried as more buried than others, shall we say. We try and get to the downtown first. Once we finish that, then we get to the side streets. But we do make every effort to get out as often as we can. We ask the public to assist us any way they can. I'm not sure how else we can do it other than asking them on the website as well, on the Twitter page. We do get assistance from the public. We do have them go out and help us whenever they can.
Just before I go to Councillor Borman, I just wanted to say that last Thursday when I was coming up from the city, I was listening to the radio station, and the announcer was talking about what he found absolutely ridiculous. There were people complaining because there were members of the public that were living in areas were cleaning off the catch basins so that when the water started to flow, that the water would at least go down the catch basin instead of making big puddles, right? So there were people in areas in Toronto that were cleaning these off, and there were people phoning in and complaining that these people shouldn't be doing that because it was the city's responsibility to do that. So he got on a bit of a tirade, and I won't comment what he said, but the bottom line is that his feeling was, and I have to agree with him, that those people, other people that are complaining, should be out helping those other people, to help clean up. It's your community. You want it to be the best that you can. Put a good foot forward and do something a little bit extra to help. And, if it's cleaning the catch basin, I clean the catch basin in front of our place because I want to make sure that water's flowing. Otherwise, it's in my front yard. So I think that anyone in the public that can do that little bit of extra to help the community goes a long way in community pride. So thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Keith, and your response, Mr. Brown, as well. But I think that there can be a message there that pride in one's community can go a long way, and it can help. Even just a little bit of help goes a long way. Councillor Borneman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is also for Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, back in the fall, your department spent some considerable time and effort in fog testing a number of drains and stormwater and sewer pipes in the community. We, I guess, are awaiting a report to tell us the outcome of that. I'm just wondering if you can update us with respect to when we might expect that or not.
Through Your Worship, the report is on my desk. I've scanned it quickly. I'd like to go through it more in depth. I'm hoping to come to council next month, or yeah, it would be April, with a report to council. But I will say that it's a very telling document. It was very successful. We were very successful in finding a lot of different cross connections. A lot of catch basins, as an example. There's one across the street from the town hall that drains a parking lot right into our sanitary system. There are no fewer than 8 or 9 flat roofs downtown that flow directly into our sanitary system. It's extremely telling. So I'm looking forward to bringing the report to council, but I'd like to spend a little bit more time reviewing it. I'm hoping to also have a bit of a slideshow, so it would be more demonstrative of where this particular water is coming from.
Okay. Any further questions, staff? Okay. Ms. Johnson, the correspondence, please.
Your Worship, there are 6 items of correspondence. The first is from Ed Horba. He's project manager with transportation with the firm GHD. He's looking for a noise bylaw exemption request for Highway 400 work at Parry Sound this summer and next summer. This item has been forwarded to the bylaw enforcement officer for follow-up. The second item is from Stephanie McDonald, a town resident, expressing appreciation for operations staff's work in fixing a water main break on February 24th on the Riverdale Road, which affected a number of Riverdale Road residents. This has been forwarded to the Director of Public Works. The third item is from Marcia Rivers, CEO of Belvedere Heights, regarding the 2019 municipal levy for Belvedere Heights, forwarded to the Manager of Accounting. The fourth item is from Rebecca Pollock, Chair of the Parry Sound Active Transportation. It's a request to allocate in the 2019 budget monies to determine the feasibility of applying the road diet concept to Parry Sound's arterial roads, including any necessary engineering and planning reviews. This has been forwarded to the Director of Public Works and copied to the Manager of Accounting. The fifth item is from Leah Harris, a town resident, with a request that after-hours water service bills that she and her family experienced to shut off water be removed from their account. This has been forwarded to the Manager of Accounting for response. And the last item is from the municipality of Niebing, with a request for a resolution of support to appeal to both AMO and to Roma to split Zone 9 into 2 geographical districts, and to Roma alone to limit the vote to 1 per municipality at its annual general meeting election for zone representation. This item has been circulated to Mayor and Council for any to refer as they wish to a future Council meeting for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next are deputations. So with regard to the deputations and presentations, tonight's council meeting, I'd like to remind the deputations here tonight, they have a maximum of 10 minutes each, including questions of clarification from council. Deputations are subject to the same rules of conduct as members of council, and that no one shall speak disrespectfully or use offensive words or insulting expressions against any member of council, staff, or another member of the public. and probably about a foot to a foot and a half away from the microphone is good. And our first deputation tonight is John Cochran from the Near North District School Board, Trustee Zone 4, an update on the new Parry Sound High School, and he's brought a couple of gentlemen with him tonight as well. Welcome. Up here. Yeah. Yep. So you just turned it off right now. Okay, you're on.
It's on or off?
It's on now.
Jolly good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Your worship. Jamie and I curled together. Mostly I'm more successful than he is. I'm your new vice chairperson of the Near North School Board, District School Board. Jay Aspen is your new chair, and Craig Miles is our superintendent for Parry Sound High School. We thought it would be timely to just bring you up to speed on what we're doing. The history of the school board seems to be a little fractured between Parry Sound and North Bay. The message that we want to bring you today is that there is no Parry Sound School Board, and there's no North Bay School Board. It's the Near North District School Board, and we're working together in conjunction to improve the quality of education, accommodation for our students, our teachers, and the taxpayers of the whole region. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what we're doing. I can get my glasses to work. Our school, our high school, is 68 years old. I had a nice tour the other day, another one of our numerous snow days. So the teachers and a couple of the students were there, and I had time to, I spent about 3 hours there, and they gave me a good tour. But I was a little bit, I wasn't disappointed by the condition of the school. The janitorial, the custodial staff do a fantastic job. For a 68-year-old school, it's in fantastic shape. But I have to tell you, when you go downstairs to the basement, windowless basement, and see the classrooms in there, a 68-year-old school, and you're all aware of the controversy with autism, special needs students, a 68-year-old school will not in any way accommodate our special needs students or autism students. As a former Ontario Human Rights Commissioner, I can tell you in my experience, that leads me to believe that this would lead to many complaints under Commission guidelines when it comes to accommodation of persons with disabilities. I happened to help to write that 15 years ago. Our custodial staff, as I said, have worked very hard to maintain the high school. Our principal and teachers and clerical staff perform an outstanding job. Let's bring them into the 21st century. Our students, parents, and staff will get the first-class high school that our taxes have paid for. I would ask that this council move a motion urging the Education Ministry to quickly approve our plans and get shovels in the ground this spring. Copy to the Premier Ford, Minister Lisa Thompson, Vic Fideli, and our local MP, Norm Miller. Rob Learn, who's a fellow trustee, and I met with McDougall School Council and the principal last week. We thought it was good to bring the bad news to them face to face. No shrinking violence here. Laurie Payne is the principal. We spent an hour discussing the move, the pros, the cons. One of the things that was mentioned was the playground size for the new, high school. We will ensure a playground suitable for those students will be built on the new site. As I explained to the parents and the principal, we, Jay and I, and our board are a fairly modern board in that we have just written a 6-page governance manual based on the best principles of governance not only in Ontario, but in Canada. Stole a wee bit from my old college, Cambridge College, and a wee bit from TDSB. We are totally transparent. I told the McDougall parents that when we get all the information back from the ministry as to where we're headed, we will share that with them. There are no secrets. Anything that's going on at the new school will be crafted in a way to ensure that their concerns are looked after. The other good news is French immersion at our public school. I attended an information night, very well attended, last week. And both Jay and I will meet with Nobel Council as soon as possible. We will also meet with our local band councils and chiefs to explain our plans for this area. 68-year-old school. The average school in Ontario is 31 years old, so you're about 37 years behind the times. You should have had a new school 37 years ago. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilor McCann.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder, could we add that resolution to tonight's agenda?
I'm going to have, that's a possibility, but I've suggested to the CAO that we have it drafted for the next council meeting,
Okay,
and then we get the appropriate wording and
okay, sounds good.
make sure that's done up properly, so, okay?
Okay, that's great. And also I would ask, Mr. Cochran, do the plans include taking down the old building once the new building is up?
Yes.
That provides a lot more real estate in which to do a lot of stuff with, whether it's playground or parking or whatnot.
Doug, there's more room there than we know what to do with. It'll be fine. There will be no paucity of space. There'll be lots of space.
What do you think is the timeline for I'm going to put you on the spot, as far as building the new school, but taking the old one down?
God knows. That'll all be predicated on the response we get from the ministry, and that's why it's so important that we get them off their ass, get them moving.
Great, thanks, good. Thank you. I'll bring the firecrackers.
Yes.
Sorry. Any further questions from council? There's not.
Okay, hearing
So
none, I want to thank you
wanna
all.
Thank you and Jay and Craig for being here. I appreciate it very much.
And I appreciate being here. And I also want to emphasize, any questions come up, anything you want to know, if we don't know the answer, we will certainly get the answer for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Your
you.
worship,
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out
Yep.
that John, of course, is our very important point man for Parry Sound. Thank the voters of Parry Sound for putting him on our board. He's very effective. Just like to say that over the last little while, we've invested in a new elementary school. We are moving to move the good program in Nipissing to Parry Sound for French immersion. We want to go ahead with this high school. We appreciate the patience. It's been 5 or 6 years. It's too long, and we want to get her done. Okay. So our board is committed to improving not only your facilities, but the education you have in this region. We're solidly behind it, and we will do what we have to do to get this school built.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, because that is good news for the community that, you know, the quality of education is going to get better. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Our next deputation is Becky Pollock, Executive Director of Georgian Bay Biosphere, and proposed community energy plan for the Biosphere region. You got a sidekick tonight. Welcome, David.
Well, good evening, Council. My name is Becky Pollock. I'm here tonight with David Bywater from the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve. It's a real pleasure. Tonight, though, we're speaking on behalf of our board of directors, a very dedicated group of volunteers that want to work together with you to make this a more sustainable region. So tonight, I did want to let you know I'll be following up from our board with a letter to articulate the specific request here tonight. That will be coming to you. Also, I wanted to note that this is a direct follow-up from a meeting that we held at Wataw First Nation on January 21st, at which some of your town staff were present, Forest Pengra specifically. It was an invitation to all area First Nations and municipalities because we believe in working with all local governments here in the biosphere. So, towards a regional energy plan and community climate action. What does that mean? I know that climate change is an urgent priority for our children and for our grandchildren. Tonight, my son is home planning his first school protest at Nobel Public School, and he is addressing his plan to the principal to be held before school so he doesn't have to miss any of grade 5. I smile at that, but it's a tragedy that our planet is heating so quickly for them. Even in Georgian Bay, we're seeing dramatic changes over our lifetimes. The past 50 years alone have seen a loss of ice cover on the Great Lakes of 70%, and right here in Georgian Bay, a loss of 62%. Despite these wonderful cold winters, we often get warm ones, and the trend is clear, it's downward, and it's accelerating. We're also seeing our surface water warming. Warming 1 degree per decade. Doesn't sound like much. That's a 10% warming a century, which changes Georgian Bay to an ecosystem that's unprecedented and unrecognizable for everything that lives there. You'll see a warming trend throughout the Great Lakes as well. What does it look like for our communities? More frequent and severe weather events, floods, droughts, storms, now forest fires. There's expensive damage to infrastructure and property, not to mention the emotional tolls that these events take on people's lives. We're seeing increased insurance rates, but ultimately increased community vulnerability, and this is something we can address. So tonight I want to propose that we work together and that we look at this possibly as a shared service. And when I use the word service, you might be familiar with the West Parry Sound Geography Network, and the service they provide is a GIS mapping-based service, very tangible. This is not that tangible, but I want you to see it in those terms, which is that we believe that we can coordinate with you corporate, so in-house municipal, and community, so our own wider community residents, climate and energy plans, and we can then implement them together. We're looking not just at this town, we're looking at many of the townships, many of the First Nations to do this work in tandem. We think we can also educate on best practices for climate planning and connect you to better resources. We have already received excellent advice from your staff and others, townships that are, leading the way with really innovative plans and energy projects. We also think that we can then adopt the practices and policies within operations that will save money, save carbon, and adapt for the future. When we talk about greenhouse gas reduction, that's just half the battle. That's mitigating, right, our greenhouse gases. We need to talk about adapting for future climate. And so we look at those two things as two halves of a whole. Mitigation, reducing our footprint, and adaptation. The potential partners, as I mentioned, 9 First Nations with traditional territory within the biosphere, and 9 local governments, including the Local Services Board to the north. That's a lot of deputations, as an aside. But this is how the Biosphere Reserve thinks. We think as a region because we're a shared landscape. We share the water, the land, and the air. We follow that Highway 400 corridor with 1 million people who pass through. And rather than looking to the federal government to solve our problems or the provincial frameworks, we think that we can do it together as a region, and we think that we have a lot of expertise among us. I'm pleased tonight that members of Wataw are here and other partners in the energy sector. Thanks for coming. So what would be the benefits of this approach? Well, financial savings through energy reductions and asset management, for example. We're talking about buildings, your fleets, other changes that have already happened within public works. But we're also looking at greenhouse gas emissions and really aggressive targets. We have a precedent for this kind of collaboration to the south of us. You may have heard of Severn Sound Sustainability. That's Severn townships working on this exact framework. However, I think, and I'll say it boldly on behalf of only myself, I think we can be more aggressive. I think we can think bigger, and I think we can achieve bigger. So we'll see those reductions, we'll see those adaptations, and we'll have improved air quality among many other public benefits. We want to propose this as a shared service because we know that by pooling resources, we can achieve cost savings. We know that every township and every First Nation doesn't have the in-house capacity, staff, to lead on a plan for their own operations per se. We'd like to help with that. We also want to accelerate the economic benefits that we see of energy resilience and also adopting the best technologies, and at the same time see environmental, social, and cultural outcomes achieved. But we won't be starting from the ground up. This is the good news. We're not starting with a blank slate. We have something called Partners for Climate Protection right now. This is managed by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the PCP, that Partners for Climate Protection, is a standardized framework that provides us with a toolkit and targets. I'll speak to that in the next slide. It's currently endorsed by over 350 municipalities in Canada. It provides us with the information, resources, and technical support that we need to deliver our targets, reduce our carbon footprint, and it provides access to all levels of funding. For example, there's one right now that's open for communities called the SNAP funding program, which is a Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan. Who wouldn't want to do a Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan? Fantastic. But until we mobilize these resources along our coast and in our region, we're just not going to be taking advantage of them. And that's one of the smaller scale projects. We're thinking about multi-year, multi-prong planning here. So I don't come to you tonight with a work plan, I'm coming with a vision. I wanted to finish by saying that it does align with current provincial regulations for energy conservation and demand management. We've read the town's planning and reporting. It's fantastic work, but I believe that the province is going to be reviewing that requirement of municipalities. We'd like to be there on the ground level to respond. And finally, it aligns well with the AMO's directive to all municipalities. They have called upon every municipality to take climate action. This is a great step. How does it work in a nutshell? Well, to be eligible, you would consider signing the resolution to join the Partners for Climate Protection. That's attached in the package and in the letter that's coming. And once you're eligible, then we would together work on milestone 1. Individually for each municipality or First Nation and regionally, we would coordinate that work. We would create the greenhouse gas emissions and inventory and then the forecasts for those projections. We want to set those targets in milestone 2 to reduce our impact. Thirdly, develop a local action plan that goes way beyond what you're doing within the corporate realm of your own assets to the community. And that's active transportation, and that's residential heating and building. It's wastewater treatment. That stormwater treatment report is of great interest to us. And I think that I can think of 5 funders right now that would like to help us mitigate that. I think it's a great opportunity. Implementing is stage 4, including our own plans and activities, and then finally monitoring progress and reporting results back to you and to the world. We'd be very proud to share what this town, and the other townships have been doing. So I'll leave you with the consideration that you might be interested in joining the Partners for Climate Protection, along with 350 other municipalities. I noticed in the news that the city of Halifax has declared a climate emergency to realign their 2019 budget with climate action. There are others taking similar steps. So to summarize our request, we would love it if you'd indicate your interest to us by appointing a representative to this regional effort. We'd love you to consider the resolution mentioned for that Partners for Climate Protection program, which is fairly non-binding, but still very helpful in activating the framework and steps that we could take together. And the Board of Directors would like you and every other partner to consider an initial financial contribution, a seed fund of maybe up to $5,000 to support 8 to 12 months of developing this committee that's regional, a terms of reference, and starting those major funding applications, which we've described. We can also begin, with your help, the emissions inventory and energy performance within the region. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Bachman?
Thank you for coming and presenting tonight. Just out of curiosity, Becky, have any other municipalities that you've presented to, have you just done the two so far? Was it Wata and us, or have you gone around?
Right, great question. So how many municipalities and First Nations have we reached out to date since January 21st? The letter that you've received has gone out to all councils named, all 18 in the region. We have met with Sequin staff and council. We'll be doing a deputation next month. Tonight is you. Township of the Archipelago has also received us in a deputation last month. We also have several others on the schedule. I'm sorry, Vanessa, I didn't bring it with me.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to
Yep, we've
know.
already met with Shawnigan, with Soxing as well. But I did want to point out that the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Framework, applies just a bit differently to First Nations. There are a number of other tools. So for example, through the IESO Energy Consortium, there are funding for individual Indigenous climate planning frameworks, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the ball is rolling. We'll keep you posted on progress.
Very good. I've suggested to the CAO that, again, for our next council meeting, we'll have a report brought forward and yeah, with more detail and all the information as well for
Absolutely.
council's consideration. Oh, is there any more questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
There's about 2 or 3 minutes left if anyone else would like to make a deputation. Seeing none, we'll move on to councilors' reports. I think Councillor McCann, I think you're up tonight.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council and staff and people watching here in the gallery and those who are watching us streaming. So a couple of items to report on. The Flying Fathers Triple H Charity Challenge took place on the evening of February the 20th at the Bobby Orr Community Center in a matchup with our local Eager Beavers. The evening made for a memorable event. Although the Flying Fathers won by a significant margin, the Eager Beavers probably have grounds to appeal the final score, especially when scrimmage football broke out. Yeah. And the event generated funds for three worthy charities: Hope Pregnancy Support Center of Parry Sound, Habitat for Humanity Parry Sound Chapter, and Hospice West Parry Sound. So we do want to thank the Flying Fathers and the Eager Beavers team, our corporate sponsors, those who made donations, arena staff were excellent, volunteers, and the Mark McPhee Band, and certainly to everyone who attended the game. This event is testament to the fact that when the community comes together, we all win. Well, the Beavers didn't actually win, but I think we all won in the long run. And I should mention too that this was their inaugural tour, and it looks like they're going to go ahead and schedule more games. So the spirit of the Flying Fathers seems to be alive once again. Wednesday, February 27th, I attended the Belvedere Heights Board of Management meeting. We're moving towards strategic planning and what we call option number 4 of 4 different sets of priorities. And the board established that number 4, which includes focusing on sustainable core services. And that includes conducting a strategic business analysis, assessing the desirability, the feasibility, the viability, current and future services, and finally offering sustainable services that align with our vision. So our operating budget for 2019 is set at $9,218,550. That's a 4.93% increase over last year's, which was 8.8 million and change. We did receive some unexpected provincial funding, so our levy actually increases only 1.5%. And so Parry Sound's portion is $135,035. So our total municipal levy is $1,517,189. We also have one of the life lease units for sale once again. Contact Belvedere Heights if you're interested in purchasing one of those. And there was some other business to take care of as well. On Thursday evening, February 28th, I attended the monthly board meeting for the West Parry Sound District Museum. Administrative housekeeping duties, reviewing our rental policy with some minor revisions, exploring the possibility of converting the back office into an archive room. This has been budgeted and is reflected in the 2019 operational plan. And we're working with the Parry Sound Library for a joint yard sale coming up this summer. Also, we had an update to the model railway installation in the E. Roy Smith Gallery and the February fundraiser. We did manage to bring in funds that we can use and put towards the installation. I have one final note I'd like to pass along. On behalf of the Friends of Belvedere, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's been contributing to our cans and bottles collection. Money raised goes to support seniors in need, and whether they're living at Belvedere or at large throughout the West District. Now, funds also go to special purchases from time to time, which are not covered by the levy or through provincial funding. Over $50,000 has been raised in the past 6 or 7 years. We take beer cans, beer bottles, wine, liquor bottles, the plastic containers, wineskins, and even the aluminum pop cans. So please consider dropping your empties at the special depots. You'll see them around town at Sobeys and at the various transfer stations, and drop off your items there and know that you're contributing to a great cause, helping our senior citizens who so certainly deserve it. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councillor Backman.
Thank you. I'm pleased to report on our first Park-to-Park board meeting that was held Thursday, February 21st at the Bobby Orr Community Center. It was our first meeting since the new councils came about and were elected, and we went over both welcoming information on financials as well as going over old business and looking at what we are going to be working on for the upcoming season. There was noted that Park to Park did submit a letter previously with their annual request, and they have made a decision to be more communicative into what they are doing with those monies, and we'll be probably seeing them doing a presentation in the near future. I was also fortunate to participate in the Parry Sound Panther Classic hockey game at the Bobby Orr on February 26th. It was a full arena, and the goal of this one-day event is to encourage positive relationships between the local OPP and our local teams. I would say it was a great success. The one-day event also raises money in support of United Way, and they were successful in raising $1,300. And on another note, I will be attending this weekend training on behalf of some of the council training sessions offered by email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Horn.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just returned this weekend from a 2-week vacation, so I'm looking forward to reestablishing myself on the committees that I've been appointed to, and looking forward to moving forward the rest of the year. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I attended the Parry Sound Planning Board meeting. There were 5 applications approved. There was 3 other applications that they were different in the way they were approved, in that they still had to be dealt with, but time was running out, so that was the purpose of the other 3 being approved. So, and also the monthly budget was approved. And finally, I was elected as chair of the board. Secondly, I attended a Safe Talk Suicide Alertness program. It was a half-a-day program, and I found it was very helpful in our community because I think the reason I attended it, and it was at the Canadore College, it was sponsored between the college, Canadian Mental Health Services, and various fundraising throughout this community to encourage local citizens to come and gather some knowledge there so that it could be helpful in recognizing some signs and how to initiate conversation to direct people where to go for help. And I thought it was very important for not only a counselor, but anybody in the community, because this is something that it affects people at all levels. We never know in society whether it's going to be our family member or who it's going to be. And the other thing is, I still think that this is a topic that unfortunately has been very taboo, and we need to bring it more out in the open so people know how to address these issues. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Councillor Keith, on your election as chair of the planning board. Councillor Burden.
As Councillor Horn, I've been out of town for the last couple of weeks, and therefore I have nothing to report this evening.
All right, thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On the 21st of February, I attended a Parry Sound District Municipal Association meeting in downtown Sundridge. We all start someplace, right, Mr. Mayor?
That's right.
So I expect that in the very near future, you'll be receiving information from our staff with respect to the upcoming spring meeting in April in South River. That was the focus of the meeting. Councillor McCann reported on Belvedere. I'm extremely pleased that the Finance Committee were able to get the levy to the point where it's at, where we've experienced many much larger increases over the past decade or so. So I thought that was a real feat. Those people deserve some credit. The other thing that happened on that date, which hasn't happened in a number of years, the Belvedere board received a number of representatives from the West Parry Sound Health Center to have an introductory kind of conversation with respect to additional long-term care beds that the province is committed to but not yet rolled out. Our conversation centered around the need that we both know exists in the community. We're just sort of reaching that tipping point where the baby boomers will be looking for more extensive care, and to begin conversation about how we can approach this issue on a collaborative basis rather than each going our own way in hopes of seeking funding. All of this is happening in a time when the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care are going under pretty major upheaval. LHINs are being rolled into super agencies. So, I think this is hopefully a first step, and the conversation will continue. But there is no short answer. Finally, today I spent most of the day at the airport. Business is slower than usual because of the weather, unlike Mr. Brown's operation. We had a long, lengthy conversation with our engineering firms about the project that's currently on the books and how best to go ahead with that. And we conducted a little exercise in urban planning as to how best to utilize the property with respect to hopefully future projects, how we account for infrastructure that's in the ground and continue to build on what's there. Finally, I'd like to close my report by congratulating Megan Oldham. I reported a couple of weeks ago about this young lady who finished second on a world ski slope event in Italy. More recently, she won an event a couple weeks ago in Colorado. This is a really an elite level athlete who deserves a lot of credit for the time and effort that she's put into making it to the big leagues in her athletic pursuits. And that's my report.
That's good. Thank you. What was the date, sorry, for district municipal? Like, what, do they have the actual date set for district municipal?
To be announced.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, good enough. All right, thank you. Council, staff, and public. February 21st was the mayors and CAOs got together in Carling Township to talk about the area wellness center. We were also, before the meeting, the get together, that we were given a tour of Carling Township's new facility that they have there. Very impressive, very well laid out, very well thought out too, as to how everything functions and works together and in the building. The main topic of discussion was the Area Wellness Center. As Mr. Harris presented the work that the CAOs had done to come up with a plan for governance and how everything would work, which was really quite good, and basically that goes back to the councils now for their consideration and something brought forward. February 22nd and 23rd was the 2-4 curling event at the curling club here in Parry Sound. Another great event, and I have to, commend Ray Pavlov and Tom Traversy and the 2-4 curling committee for all their work and effort that went into it. I think they raised over $13,000 for veterans and veterans' families. Goes a long way in supporting those families. This is an event that actually started here, that Tom and Ray started here in Parry Sound, has now grown in a number of provinces in Canada and certainly communities in Ontario. And again, the effort is to support veterans and their families. The major from North Bay was in attendance and kind of gave a bit of history on himself and that sort of thing. He's a huge Boston Bruins fan, and anyway, my wife and I were, the way it's structured, one team. So we both wore our Bobby Orr Hall of Fame jerseys, and when we were done, I gave him my jersey, and he was so thrilled to get that yeah, he was totally ecstatic. He had gone down, I think, on Saturday for a tour of the Hall of Fame. It was the first time he'd been in there. He was totally enthralled, and yeah, the icing on the cake was when he got the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame jersey. He was tickled pink. So that was good. Someone that commits their life to service like he has, and has been in Afghanistan and, I think Bosnia and other places like that he has seen active service. But yeah, if you can extend a little bit of community pride and consideration to them, they really appreciate it. February 24th to the 27th, I attended the Ontario Good Roads Conference in Toronto. February 25th, I had a meeting with the Minister of Health. February 28th was an AMO executive meeting, and that's my report. So on with the business of council. First one. So item 7.1, this one come from the closed portion of the meeting and moved forward to open. It was moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor McCann. Council of the Town of Parry Sound approved the nomination to the EMS Advisory Committee of Mayor Jamie McGarvey, Scott Sheard, Rod Osborne, Kim Dixon, Maurice Turgeon, Lyle Hall, and Kathy Still for the current term of council. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Chief Thompson now has a committee to work with. Next item is 911, moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann. Whereas the town of Parry Sound owns and operates the Parry Sound Drinking Water System, MOE designation number 22000000585, which has been categorized as a large residential drinking water system. And whereas Ontario Regulation 170/03, as amended under the Safe Drinking Water Act, SO 2002 C32, requires, according to Schedule 22 summary reports for municipalities, that all large municipal residential drinking water systems have a report prepared no later than March 31st of each year addressing the items detailed in the regulation, and that the report is given to members of council in the case of a drinking water system owned by the municipality. Therefore be resolved that the Council of the Town of Parry Sound hereby acknowledges receipt of the report titled Town of Parry Sound Tony Agnello Water Treatment Plant Large Municipal Residential Drinking Water System Summary Report 2018, as prepared by Kyle Hall, Manager of Water Systems. Discussion. Councillor Keith?
Yes, just one question, and I appreciate all the hard work that was put into the water report here that's prepared for us. I just wanted to kind of be clear, Mr. Brown, because we're always looking at development. With the information that is being presented here, are there any concerns if future development was to come into our community at this point in time? Would that impact in any way that we should be seriously concerned right now for budgets, etc.?
Through your worship, this is not directly related at all to any development. This is a standard document that is required by law to be distributed by council for the Ministry of Environment. Having said that, there are indications of the monthly average flows, the daily average flows, and the maximum flows. And as you can see, that there is still sufficient room in the water treatment system to allow further development in Parry Sound.
Well, there's no concern, because I saw that was at average, the 10,000, there was a figure of 10,000 there, was there? Saw it.
Through your worship, as far as the flows go, because we didn't get anywhere near that.
That would be, I think, the maximum that we could have for a flow. So we're still 50%, really. What the flow is right now is 50% of what would be the possibility. Is that basically?
Through your worship, in 2018, that's the approximate value is 52%. It was also depends on the temperature of the year, how much water is being used. We are finding that the more meters that we're installing, that actually will drop the amount of flow that's being distributed out into the system.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman?
Mr. Brown, I think that maybe you should be jumping and praising your staff down there, because my limited insight into this, the report is very, very positive, and that we're continuing to produce a really high quality product, that there are no red flags that the user should be concerned about, that we're meeting or exceeding ministry requirements in almost every area.
Through your worship, yeah, thank you, Councillor Borneman. I do want to say that I appreciate the work of Kyle Hall and all the staff at the water treatment plant, and the work that they are continually doing there. And with water treatment, it's not as simple. It sounds simple as just turning the tap on and away we go. There is so much work that needs to be involved there, and it's ever changing. It's ever evolving. The Ministry of Environment is always on our heels, watching the work that we do. We just finished doing an inspection with the Ministry of Environment back in January, and once again the water plant passed with flying colors. There are reports that are going to be generated from that, but it's an ever evolving, ever changing system, and I think the town should commend the staff for the work that they do down there. They do an excellent job.
Okay. Any further questions? No? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Yes, and Mr. Brown, please pass on council's thank you and for all their efforts. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that council accepts the proposal from WESSUC Incorporated for biosolids haulage and beneficial reuse / disposal in the all-inclusive amount of $20.33 per cubic meter for a 3-year term to 1. Locate, license, certify, or recertify fields, or when required, for the purpose of biosolids application and beneficial reuse, including soil testing and pH adjustment as required. 2. Provide the town, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and farmers with all required documentation. 3. Haul and apply biosolids on a licensed disposal sites. This proposal being the lowest of 2 proposals received. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Item 913, moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, that pursuant to bylaw 2002-4549, which requires prior council approval for attendance at seminars, conferences, and conventions outside the province of Ontario, council authorizes the Director of Public Works to attend the 2019 Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative Annual Conference to be held in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, June 5th to the 7th, 2019. Discussion. Councillor Keith.
I understand that, Mr. Brown, that whoever would go, in this case it might be you, would go to this conference, that one of the thoughts also, besides what's mentioned here about the plastics, basically the microplastics, is, am I correct, you would also be looking at, or there would be discussion probably regarding the Asian carp, because I think that is a real concern for people in our community up here. And so can you tell me if I am somewhat correct in those areas? Also, would you have already even seen some sort of agenda so one could clearly know what percentage is being advertised as information that you can glean?
Through your worship, there is an agenda as part of this program. I'd be happy to send that off to all council members. There is some information on the issue of Asian carp. There's also some discussion that's headed towards the fog testing that we did in Parry Sound. There was a genuine interest in the work that we did there. When it was mentioned, I believe at the OGRA conference, I ran into the director at that conference. So there's a genuine interest there. The City of St. Catharines Mayor is going to be doing a talk on the removal of plastic straws in the region and in the city. So it's fairly wide ranging. It's a very diverse conference, and they're expecting upwards of 200 people there. So I'd be happy to share the agenda with all of council.
Anything further from council? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you for Mr. Brown for going. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann, that the Town of Parry Sound approve an amended 2018 land ambulance budget in the amount of $9,787,073, which includes the unbudgeted deficit amount of $309,357, and that EMS municipal surplus reserve be used to fund the deficit for payment to the West Parry Sound Health Center, and then upon payment of the Ministry of Health 50% of the deficit, these funds be returned to the EMS municipal surplus reserve. Councillor Borneman.
Chief Thompson, can you tell the public what it is exactly that we're up to here?
Through you, Mr.
140
Mayor.
characters or less.
This is a fairly complicated report and complicated subject, mainly because it deals with the funding from the Ministry of Health that the EMS service receives. So I'll try to break it down into two parts. The first part is a deficit of $309,000. So that's identified, and the sources of that are identified. It all relates to on-the-ground paramedic services that incurred this deficit. Part of it, a third of that, approximately a third of that deficit is related specifically to changes that the government made, the Ontario government made to benefits, such as personal emergency leave days, as well as stat holidays that greatly affected people who conduct shift work of 12-hour shifts or more. And then the other 2/3 is related to increased sick time benefits over what was budgeted. So the budget was set before either of those discrepancies were identified in 2018, therefore there's the deficit. The second piece of the report is how to fund the deficit. Normally, what occurs with the EMS service is that the Ministry of Health, it's supposed to be a 50-50 funding avenue. So that would be 50% by the district municipalities and 50% by the province. Now, the province never gets to their 50%. And that is because they generally fund based upon the previous year's actuals. So a little bit hard to grasp, but what they will give us in a year is what they should have given us the year before. To compound that, when we can finally finalize a deficit like we did this year, we're finalizing a 2018 deficit in 2019. That means that the province would generally recognize that amount in 2019 and pay for it in 2020. Therefore, they're now 2 years behind when the costs were incurred. So I had an interesting conversation with them late last week, and it so happens that they seem to be more flexible than I've ever recognized them to be in the past month, and the cause of that I have no idea. However, they did come up with a creative solution in that the provincial fiscal year ends March 31st. So they suggested that if I were able to get an amended 2018 budget supported by council and get it to them in a relatively quick time, meaning tomorrow, that they would maybe be able to fund the source or the deficit within their 2018-2019 budget year. That is why there was a rush on this report. It's not something that we've ever encountered before or a solution that we've ever identified, nor has the ministry ever identified it for us. Therefore, this is in front of you, and it was a little bit of a rush, and I do appreciate council entertaining it tonight.
Exactly. Get the resolution in. Any further comments? All in favor? That's carried. Chief Thompson, thank you very much for taking the initiative and doing that. Well done. Okay. This was postponed from March 5th, 2019. The direction for follow was that moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Backman. The staff be directed to implement remuneration increases of elected officials effective January 1st, 2019, as recommended in this report and consistent with council direction set out in bylaw 2015-6554. Discussion. Councillor Keith.
First of all, I'd like to say I realize there's been a lot of hard work done in the preparations here. I recognize that there's many municipalities who have moved forward on this with the same type of information that has been presented to council tonight. And my concern is, and I respect what is written in the report. My concern is, I think I personally would have felt more comfortable if there had been a group of citizens who were also involved, who could appreciate the understanding of why this is being proposed for council fiscally. And so because of that, I don't feel comfortable in supporting what is being presented here, as I think that when legislation gets changed in reference to fiscal amounts and it's affecting, I can only speak for myself, I just don't feel comfortable in supporting what might seem like reasonable to some people. I don't feel comfortable in it because I feel that when one ran, they already, in the last election, they should have known what was going to happen by 2019. And so I didn't get in it personally for whatever I was going to be paid. So I have an issue with supporting this because of those reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Horn, can you take the chair for a second, please? I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Keith, although there are some concerns. One is that there was a resolution passed because everyone did know at that particular time of the consequences of what was going to happen because the federal government changed the taxation laws. Therefore, council did pass a resolution at that particular time that council would not have any unfair burden or whatever because of the changes that the federal government has made. Second thing is I decide who I'm going to share my tax information with in my other job. Also, my spouse's taxation. So I'm not prepared to go outside of the staff of this municipality to share that information with anybody in the public. It's nobody's business except myself and who I decide to share it with. So in that retrospect, I think staff did an excellent job on what they were trying to do in this thing. Yes, it's not perfect maybe in some people's eyes, but this is happening right across Canada. It's not just here in Parry Sound. It's not just in Ontario. It's in every province in the country. And because of those changes. And in the report, it does mention that, you know, we could have done this back in, what's 2003, I believe, this change could have happened. So over the course of time from 2003 to now, basically this municipality took the 1/3 tax exemption, which saved the municipality in the long run close to $500,000. But we have no recourse now. This is the change that is happening. As I've said, the federal government's made that change, which means that you know, you end up being on the losing stick if you don't change it. And I don't think anyone here is prepared to do that. And I think in moving forward for successive councils and people running for councils, you want to attract good people to the position. And therefore, I think maintaining a certain level, I think, is something that council should do. So those are my reasons for certainly supporting the fact of I support what council or what staff has done and presented here based on the playing field that has been created for us. I'll take the chair back, Councillor Horn. Thank you. Are there any other comments from council members? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Yes, again, with respect to Councillor Keith, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you, and I'm not sure if the public really understands just what was behind this, but elected officials would get a certain portion of their pay, their honorary salary, if you will, tax-free, because you're expected to spend basically your own out-of-pocket money to get to places, whether it's across town or whatnot. So this was an opportunity for for people to, I guess, in some way or another, claim those expenses at, you know, at in going through with our mandate. Anyhow, but you're right in that what we do essentially, if this wasn't passed, we would be working for less right now. And I think it's important to know, Justin, that his and I know it accounts for a lot of money, but when you see where federal dollars are going and such. Anyhow, my feeling is that this was one thing they could have left alone. But it is going to cost municipalities a lot more because the increase in our salaries to compensate for the non-taxable is costing municipalities in their, you know, as far as the employer costs such as unemployment or unemployment insurance, and you know, the employer's portions of what would normally we take home.
Councillor Hort.
Thank you. I think everyone around this table realizes that we're here not for the wage, not for the remuneration, that we're here to represent the taxpayers of the town of Parry Sound, and it just needs to be fair compensation, and what was introduced by the federal government did not make it fair. So I certainly want to thank the staff for the report. It's an excellent report. I would ask the public to review the report. If they have any questions, it's very clear on what has happened. And I just want to thank you again for the report. Thanks.
Councillor Keith.
One final comment. I'm just going to say, and I realize times changed, but historically people did get elected to councils and they didn't get remuneration at all. But in any event, I would ask for a recorded vote, please.
Sure. Is there any further comments on any of this, on this topic? No? Okay. Ms. Johnson, you get the honors of doing the roll call.
So, recorded vote on the question. Councillor Backman. Aye. Councillor Borneman? No. Councillor Burden? Aye. Councillor Horn?
Yes.
Councillor Keith?
No.
No. Councillor McCann?
Yes.
Yes. Mayor McGarvey?
Yes.
There are 5 in favor and 2 opposed. The direction carries.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is, I need a mover and seconder for the next direction. Councillor Backman and Councillor McCann. The staff bring council group benefit options, health, dental for consideration to a future council meeting. Discussion. Councillor Keith.
Well, basically for about the same type of reasons, I don't support this direction. And I'll ask for a recorded vote, please.
Yep. Councillor McCann.
Even though I voted yes for the previous motion, I have to agree with Councillor Keith on this, that what is, for something to be automatically set, is that just cost of living, or is there actually an increase to, if it was just basically a cost of living, I could accept that, but I think I would prefer not to deal with this if there's anything more than that.
Okay, so this one, we've already dealt with the other one. This one has to deal with actually whether we offer health or dental for consideration to council members.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, yeah. Oh, it's been a long day. Okay, I'm just going to rescind that last comment.
So, so this is something that some municipalities do. So I mean that's entirely whatever. Is there any further comments on it? Yes.
I was wondering, for people around, is it worth it for the town to take this on? Does it cost the municipality anything as far as being an employer goes? And who would take advantage of this? I know for myself, we're very fortunate to have benefits from my wife's job. So I just wonder, how would this be something that we would avail ourselves to?
Is it not turning on? No? Here.
Through the chair to Councillor McCann, each person's situation is going to be different. Again, if you've got a spouse with benefits, if you don't, if you're retired, and depending on what the benefit package is, where your spouse is employed, or perhaps even a councillor who's got another type of employment. So each situation is going to be different.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Go again. Go ahead, Ms. Jones. Yeah.
All right, for a recorded vote on the question of bringing forward a report on health and benefits provision for members of council, yes or no, Councillor Backman? Councillor Borneman? Councillor Burden? Yes. Councillor Horn? No. Councillor Keith?
No.
Councillor McCann?
No.
Mayor McGarvey?
Yes.
The results are 4 opposed and 3 in favor, so the direction is lost.
Okay. Okay, so the next one, I need a mover and seconder for the direction. Councillor Borneman. And who else? Oh, Councillor Burden, actually, was. I thought I saw a hand, but I wasn't sure. So this reads that upon approval of council direction regarding remuneration increases retroactive to January 1st and consideration of council group benefits, health and dental, staff present a comprehensive compensation bylaw for council members to a future council meeting. So since the dental and health one was defeated, I'm going to remove that section with regard to health and dental. So it'll be that upon approval of council direction regarding remuneration increases retroactive January 1st, 2019, staff present a comprehensive comprehensive bylaw for council members to the next council meeting. Discussion. No? All in favor? And opposed? 2 opposed, it's carried. Okay. Okay, give me that. Item 932, moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Backman. Whereas the Town of Parry Sound supports Bill 47, making Ontario Open for Business Act 2018. And whereas the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, NOHFC, promotes and stimulates economic development initiatives in Northern Ontario by providing financial assistance to projects that foster the economic growth and diversification of the region, and whereas the NOHFC Northern Business Opportunity Program provides funding which is of special interest to small and medium-sized advanced manufacturing businesses from outside of Northern Ontario. And whereas such businesses wish to establish their operations in Northern Ontario with support of the NOHFC funding, and whereas the process of NOHFC business expansion and new investment projects applications currently takes more than 8 months, and whereas lengthy processing times are a challenge in Northern Ontario where construction seasons are shorter due to the climate and various environmental restrictions at certain times of the year, and whereas in some cases lengthy approvals result in losing out on investment opportunities and applicants abandoning their applications and their plans to locate in Northern Ontario. Whereas these delays adversely affect the objectives of the program, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Parry Sound supports the provincial government's focus on how to cut government red tape, improve government programs and services, and that NOHFC business expansion and new investment funding application procedures and processing times should be reviewed with the objective of reducing approval timelines to 6 months or less. That NOHFC expedite the application process by retaining more than one audit firm to undertake the auditing of the applications. That a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Vic Fideli, MPP, Minister of Finance, the Honourable Greg Rickford, MPP, Ministry of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Mr. Norm Miller, MPP, Parry Sound, Muskoka. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
Well, I'm not sure how this can be written in there, but, you know, we've had a significant experience with grant applications at the airport and the developments there, and there is no contemplation from either FedNor or NOHFC with respect to winter, spring, and the seasonality of construction in Northern Ontario. We were at the airport less than a month ago, received some money through NOHFC, and they're asking us when we will have that money spent. It's for grubbing and excavating of property. Well, right now it's under about 4 feet of snow. So to try to undertake that work and have it billed before the end of March, which is their sort of suggested term, is fool's gold. So somehow or another that should be added into the message that we're trying to send to Queen's Park and Ottawa.
That message gets hammered to them a lot, but they don't listen. No. Fortunately, it is in our resolution, so try to make the point again. Any further comment? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Oh, yeah. And mover and seconder for the next direction, please. Item 933, Councillor McCann and Councillor Horn. Pursuant to the town hiring policy, the subcommittee for the hiring of the Director of Finance position be composed of the following members of council. Councillor Borneman, I believe you said you wanted to be on that. Councillor Horn. Anyone else? Councillor Keith?
I would have just one caveat. I would like to be on it as long as the meeting can be in the evening, like the interview can be in the evening rather than a day.
I think Councillor Horn probably would appreciate that as well. Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. another long one. And the next one is too. Holy smokes. Item 941, moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Bachman. The Council for the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound hereby grants permission for Mr. J. Anastasio to operate one motorized mobile ice cream truck for the time period of May 10th, 2019 to September 30th, 2019 on municipally owned roads and lands of the Town of Parry Sound subject to the following conditions. 1. No parking, stopping, or selling of products on any Class 3 road, Bowes, Seguin, Church, Joseph Street. No parking, stopping, or selling of products on any Class 4, Class 5, or Class 6 roadway without a shoulder or marked parking spaces. No parking, stopping, or selling products in any municipal-owned parking lot. 4. The operator will take necessary steps to ensure that the public sidewalks are not obstructed. 5. No parking or stopping or selling within prescribed distance of 23 meters from any eating establishment or seller of foodstuffs. 6. A $3 million public liability coverage for a refreshment vehicle is required as this is a motorized mobile vehicle. 7. The hours of our operation will be from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. from Monday to Sunday. Selling from any one location will be limited to 20 minutes. 9. Must receive owner's written consent to park or sell on private property and a copy of the letter submitted to the town's licensing officer. 10. That every operator employee who operates or works out of the motorized mobile ice cream truck must submit to a criminal record check. And 11. That all of the requirements under bylaw 2006-49 Schedule 1 be met. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I think this is the third year this has come up. Can we not offer this gentleman some sort of like a 3-year term on what we agree upon?
Mr. Beaumont.
Through you,
Welcome.
Your Worship. Why we do this annually, Councillor McCann, is just to make sure there's no complaints from the previous year. Because when we were concerned 3 years ago when this first came out that because it was new, we didn't know how it was going to progress along if we get complaints and stuff like that. So it was our thought, one of our thoughts is to do this annually. And then we can keep track of any complaints, and if there is, then we just deny them permission to use our roadways.
Okay, that's good strategy. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments, Councillor Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Beaumont. So just for clarification, when this comes to council, outside of the efforts, the operator needs to contact you again to say, I'm interested in doing that this summer, and the work that you have to do to present it to council. Are there other costs involved? Like, does he have to pay a separate fee, whether it would have been 1 year or 2 years? Does the fee change per year? What's the scoop?
Through you, Your Worship. Councillor Keith, he pays an annual fee every time he applies. It's $100, $110 per season. So then that wouldn't really change if we were to, grant him a longer term. There would still be some cost recovery through his fee.
Well, just one question through the mayor, and that would be though that fee that he's paying, would that not go through? Would that go through bylaw rather than your department? I'm just thinking about, it might be $100 this year, but it could be $125 next year.
Through you, Your Worship. No, it comes through the finance department through our licensing system. The fees are pretty much set. We'd have to adjust the fees bylaw to increase any fees like that.
Just for clarification then, when's the last time we did an adjustment of these licensing fees? Like, I'm just trying to know, is that a fair? Are we in sync or are we behind?
Through you, Your Worship. The research I did when this first came out, there wasn't that many mobile ice cream vehicles in the area. We're probably maybe be a little low, but not significantly from other municipalities. I think Huntsville He was charged about $150 while he operated over there.
Okay, anything further? All in favor? And that's carried, thank you. Item 951, moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn. Whereas municipal governments in Ontario do not have the right to approve landfill projects in their communities, but have authority for making decisions on all other types of development. And whereas this outdated policy allows private landfill operators to consult with local residents and municipal councils, but essentially ignore them. And whereas Ontario's proposed Made in Ontario environmental plan states that the province will grant municipalities a greater say in siting of landfills, and whereas municipalities already have exclusive rights for approving casinos and nuclear waste facilities within their communities, whether to host cannabis retail in their communities, and further, that the province has recognized the value of municipal approval in the siting of power generation facilities, and whereas the recent report of Ontario's Environmental Commissioner has found that Ontario has a garbage problem, particularly from industrial, commercial, and institutional ICI waste generated within the City of Toronto, where diversion rates are as low as 15%. Unless significant efforts are made to increase recycling and diversion rates, a new home for this Toronto garbage will need to be found as landfill space is filling up quickly. And whereas municipalities across Ontario are quietly being identified and targeted as potential landfill sites for future Toronto garbage by private landfill operators. And whereas other communities should not be forced to take Toronto's waste, as landfills can contaminate local watersheds, air quality, dramatically increase heavy truck traffic on community roads, and reduce the quality of life for local residents. And whereas municipalities should be considered experts in waste management, as they are responsible for this within their own communities and often have decades worth of in-house experience in managing waste, recycling, and diversion programs. Whereas municipalities should have the exclusive right to approve or reject these projects and assesses whether the potential economic benefits are of sufficient value to offset any negative impacts and environmental concerns. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Parry Sound calls upon the Government of Ontario, as part of its Made in Ontario Environment Plan, to formally entrench the right of municipalities to approve or reject landfill projects in or adjacent to their communities, and that in the case of a two-tier municipality, the approval required at both the upper tier and affected lower tier municipalities. And further, that the Town of Parry Sound encourage all other municipalities in Ontario to consider this motion calling for immediate provincial action, and that the motion adopted by Council be forwarded to the Demand the Right Coalition of Ontario Municipalities. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I certainly support this, and the deputation we had a few weeks ago certainly brought this to light. I'm just wondering how any company could just come into a town and create a landfill site. Is that I would think there's zoning and restrictions. If I owned a piece of property somewhere in a municipality and I made a deal with a private company to open up a landfill site, would I have the power to do that, I suppose?
It's written. That's what it says. Yeah.
Through the chair, I know staff aren't intimately familiar with the rules and regulations for getting a landfill, but the gentleman, the mayor of Ingersoll, was on deputation last council meeting, and certainly from his experience, it appears that as a local municipality, very little they can do, even if they object to actually stopping it. It may be similar to the items developed under the Green Energy Act, wind turbines and dams and stuff. Local bylaws and zoning don't apply. It may be a similar type of situation.
Just curious. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn, that bylaw number 2019-6898, being a bylaw to appoint Will Williamson as an inspector pursuant to the Building Code Act and to revoke several outdated appointments, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Okay, carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor Keith?
Yes, I just have one quick question. Well, Mr. Este, maybe it won't be a quick question, who knows? The question, though, is with this appointment, will there be any change financially, or basically are things going to be about the same, or would you know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Williamson is appointed as a building inspector, his wage will go up. However, the wages are, this is anticipated, so that's in the budget that's yet to be approved for the year.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Bachman and seconded by Councillor Horn that bylaw number 2019-6899, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan development agreement with Infrastructure Ontario OPP station on 1 North Road, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Start the car, I know. Is there anything you want to add, Mr. LG, to this?
Through you, Your Worship, I forgot to add the site plan as an attachment to the report, so I threw it on the projector.
Yes. Just in describing the location of where this is going to be.
It is at the north end of town. You can see it in the air photo right here, but it's a former Kinsman Park. It's bound by road actually on all four sides, so it's got North Road to the north and the highway to the east, and Parry Sound Drive is to the southwest. It's to the east of where the town's industrial park is and Hydro One facility and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay.
It's quite close to the highway, which is what the OPP was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything further comments from council? Councilor McCann?
Do we know when they're putting the shovel in the ground yet?
Through your worship, John just confirmed with me that they're looking to start construction in April, so imminently, I guess.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's good. Anything further? All in favor? That's good. That's carried. They can get her done. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn. Hang on. Darn colds, I tell you. So moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that bylaw number 2019-6900, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled to take place at 52 Seguin Street in the council chambers located on the top floor. Public access to the building is off Gibson Street. The next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, March 19th, 2019. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Regular and special meetings are now live streamed. Please check news and public notices on our website at www.parrysound.ca for instructions to watch live or to see earlier council meetings. Agendas, changes to the council meeting schedule, and notices of special council meetings will be posted on the town's website at www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices prior to a council meeting. The public is able to view an electronic copy of the complete agenda with attachments on the town's website. Just search council calendar and the date of the meeting. Should you wish to receive the combined agenda by email, you may make that request on our website or contact the clerk at the municipal office. The minutes of the council meetings will be posted within 2 days after the council meeting on the town's website and on the bulletin board located in the municipal office entrance. Your TV will continue to air the regular Parry Sound council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Get some John Henrys.
Oh, sure.